Have you ever wondered what would happen if you decided to go for a swim in a river clearly marked as teeming with crocodiles? Stay tuned for our countdown, where we'll show you why some warning signs aren't mere suggestions and why ignoring them can lead to a ripple on the water where you once were. What's more dangerous than a flash flood sweeping across a bridge? A luxury SUV driver who thinks all-wheel drive means invincible against nature. Hello everyone, welcome to Wow Amazing. In this video, we will go through our Volume 16 of Top 10 Most Stupid Darwin Award Winners. But before we begin, we would like you guys to subscribe to Wow Amazing and hit the notification bell so you do not miss out on amazing and entertaining content that will surely get you amazed. Now get ready, because this volume is absolutely packed with tales that'll make you question humanity's survival as a species. Number 10, Hotter Copper Whopper. Let's begin our countdown with a reminder that metal conducts electricity, especially when that metal is stolen from power lines. It's July 2011 in Leeds, United Kingdom, and a 16-year-old teenager has decided that the fastest way to riches is through stealing copper wire from electrical installations. Not exactly a brilliant career choice, but certainly a path with immediate returns, both financial and fatal. Copper theft had become such a problem in West Yorkshire that CE Electric UK had dealt with 279 incidents in just 1 year. The company had even begun marking their copper using special smart water technology to deter the malicious, costly vandalism. But our Darwin Award winner had not been aware by such technological advances, nor was he concerned by the numerous danger of death signs prominently posted around the electrical installations. Those warnings are just there to scare people away from the valuable copper, right? At least that's what our young entrepreneur must have thought. What he failed to consider was the fact that those installations carry enough voltage to power entire neighborhoods, more than enough to power a one-way trip to the afterlife. The teenager approached the electrical installation with his tools, ready to make a quick profit from stolen metal. The moment his tools touched the live wires, thousands of volts surged through his body, bringing his brief criminal career to an electrifying finale. So, the next time you're tempted by those shiny copper wires, remember our Leeds teen, who at the tender age of 16 learned the hard way that stealing copper is a fast-track train to Charles Darwin's heavenly estate. Number 9, dying for a ciggy. What's worth risking your life for? A loved one? A treasured possession? How about a cigarette? For our next Darwin Award winner, the answer was definitely the latter. It's June 2003, and a 43-year-old woman is traveling on the National Express bus service from Glasgow to London. Anyone who's taken this 12-hour journey knows it can feel like an eternity, especially if you're addicted to nicotine and faced with a strict no-smoking policy. As the miles rolled by, our protagonist became increasingly desperate for a cigarette. When the coach made a scheduled stop at Carlisle, she thought relief was finally at hand. But to her dismay, passengers were not allowed off the bus at this particular stop. Back in her seat, she became even more frustrated, her need for nicotine now reaching critical levels. She became increasingly anxious, shouting that she wanted off the bus. But there was a problem. They were on a motorway, where stops are only permitted in emergencies. Surely she couldn't be trying to get off a moving coach just to smoke? Oh, yes, she could. In a moment of nicotine-deprived insanity, she forced the door open while the coach was traveling at approximately 60 miles per hour. The laws of physics took over from there, and she was crushed beneath the wheels of the very vehicle that had been carrying her to London. At that point, the coach did make an emergency stop, but life is not fair. Unlike a condemned man, our heroine never did get that last cigarette. Remember, folks, no matter how strong the craving, patience is not just a virtue. Sometimes it's the difference between life and death. Number 8, weight lift. They say exercise is good for you, but as our next Darwin Award winner discovered, improper use of gym equipment can be hazardous to your health, especially when that equipment is an industrial elevator shaft. In July 2007, 24-year-old Jessica was working out in the Provincia Hotel's gym in Guadalajara, Mexico, when she realized she needed something from the floor below. Most people would use the stairs, the phone, or perhaps the intercom system to communicate with people on other floors. But Jessica, apparently thinking outside the box, came up with a more direct approach. Why not use the open shaft of the industrial lift as a makeshift communication device? So there she was, mid-workout, deciding that sticking her head into an empty elevator shaft was the most efficient way to shout to the people downstairs. Perhaps the endorphins from her exercise had clouded her judgment, or maybe she was simply in too much of a hurry to consider the consequences. Whatever her reasoning, she failed to notice one critical detail: the elevator was coming up towards her. Now, if the elevator had been going down, one could argue that she was in no position to observe its approach, but she was looking down the shaft, directly in the path of the rising metal box. Since two solid objects cannot occupy the same space, in this case an elevator cage and a human skull, one had to give way. Let's just say the elevator won this particular contest of hardness. The hotel staff were devastated, her family was devastated, but the gene pool? It may have dodged a bullet. Jessica's tragic story serves as a reminder that some shortcuts aren't worth taking, and that elevators deserve our respect, not our heads. Number 7. Off-road driving. Our next Darwin Award winner proves that marketing brochures should come with a disclaimer. Results may vary, especially during flash floods. It's January 2005 in Johannesburg, South Africa. Massive thunderstorms have turned the Braamfontein into a raging river, and police are stationed at a bridge warning motorists not to cross due to the dangerous floodwaters. Enter Barbara, a 33-year-old woman driving a BMW X3, a luxury SUV with X-Drive all-wheel drive technology. When officers flagged her down and advised her not to attempt crossing the submerged bridge, Barbara didn't see cause for concern. Confident in her vehicle's abilities, Barbara laughed off the police advice and continued towards the bridge. Perhaps she was imagining how impressed her friends would be when she told them how her magnificent machine had conquered the elements while lesser vehicles turned back. What Barbara failed to consider was that virtually unlimited is not the same as actually unlimited, a distinction that became tragically clear moments later. As she drove onto the flooded bridge, the powerful floodwaters quickly overpowered the SUV's traction system. In an instant, X-Drive all-wheel drive lost its grip, and the luxury vehicle was swept off the bridge like a toy boat in a bathtub. Barbara had no time to reconsider her decision as the BMW X3, with her trapped inside, was carried away by the raging torrent. Her body was found later inside the vehicle over a mile downstream from the bridge. The moral of this story? No matter how impressive and advanced your vehicle's features, Mother Nature doesn't read marketing materials. Sometimes the smartest driving decision is to turn around and find another route, or simply wait for better conditions. Number 6. Teeming with crocodiles. Pop quiz class. If you come across a river that locals describe as teeming with crocodiles and hippos, do you A. Admire it from a safe distance? B. Take photos from the shore? C. Go for a refreshing swim, not once, not twice, but 3 times? If you answered C, congratulations. You've thought like our next Darwin Award winner. It's January 1st, 2010 in South Africa. Mariska B., a 27-year-old waitress and former swimmer, is enjoying New Year's Day with friends along the banks of the Olifants River, a main tributary of the great gray-green Limpopo. According to the residents of the area, locals are well aware that you don't even put a toe in the river. It's teeming with crocodiles and hippos, but Mariska, perhaps feeling invincible on the first day of a new year, or maybe showing off her swimming skills to her friends, decided that swimming was exactly what she wanted to do. Despite the risks, despite the warnings, despite the prohibition notices, she took a dip in the dangerous waters. Incredibly, she emerged from her first swim unscathed. Strengthened by this success, Mariska went back in for a second swim, again returning safely to shore. They say 3rd time's the charm, but in Mariska's case, it was the charm that ran out. On her 3rd dip of the day, friends watched in horror as she entered the water and then disappeared. There was no dramatic struggle, no screaming, no thrashing, just a ripple on the water where seconds before she had been swimming. Police searched for Mariska's body with long poles and even brought in sniffer dogs, but found nothing. Number 5. Low-flying drunks. Our next story proves that alcohol, aviation, and amateurs are a combination that rarely reaches a safe landing. It's 1996 in the peaceful town of Chilliwack, Canada. Residents are sleeping soundly when they're awakened by the unusual sound of a small aircraft flying much lower than normal regulations would permit, zooming close like an oversized mosquito, then veering away. The explanation for this aerial disturbance: during a night of heavy drinking that extended into the early morning hours, two future Darwin Award nominees came to a startling conclusion. Despite neither having a pilot's license nor any flight training whatsoever, they knew all they needed to know to pilot an aircraft. Conveniently, one of these gentlemen worked at the small local airport and had access to the tarmac. The other apparently provided moral support for this foolproof plan. From conception to execution, their plan progressed with alarming speed. Once there, they managed to break into a small plane, taxi to the runway, and somehow get it off the ground and into the night sky. What followed was an extended period of random aerial activity as they buzzed around in the dark, skimming above the roofs of houses, likely thrilled with their achievement and oblivious to the terror they were causing below. Eventually, their bladders began to complain, but in their alcohol-induced confusion, they could no longer remember how to find the airport. Disoriented and needing to land, they attempted to set the plane down on the grassy median between east and westbound lanes of the Trans-Canada Highway. They might have made it too, if not for the electrical wires crossing the median. The tail of their aircraft clipped these wires, causing the plane to take a nose-first dive into the ground. Both occupants were killed instantly. Only then were the residents of Chilliwack able to return to their peaceful slumber, though one imagines their dreams were filled with low-flying aircraft for some time to come. Number 4. Snowball's chance in hell. Sometimes even a harmless bit of fun can turn deadly when combined with massive moving machinery, as our next Darwin Award winner discovered. It's March in Delaware, and two toll collectors on I-95 are engaged in a friendly snowball fight to break the monotony of their workday. After all, manning a toll booth isn't exactly the most stimulating occupation, so it's only natural they'd find ways to entertain themselves during slow periods. As vehicles passed through the toll plaza, one of the collectors spotted what appeared to be a pristine patch of snow on top of a passing tractor-trailer rig. Seeing an opportunity to gather ammunition for their snowball fight, he reached out to scoop some snow from the moving vehicle. It seemed like a simple enough action, just a quick grab to collect some snow for their game. What could possibly go wrong? Unfortunately, the toll collector misjudged the interaction between his hand and the moving truck. Instead of merely scooping snow, his hand caught in the rig somehow, perhaps snagged on an unexpected protrusion or caught between layers of accumulated ice and metal. In an instant, what had been innocent fun turned into a fatal mistake. The powerful tractor-trailer pulled the man from his booth and dragged him along the highway to his death. Emergency services were called immediately, but there was nothing they could do. The dividing line between a harmless prank and a deadly mistake can be thinner than we imagine. So the next time you're tempted to reach out and touch a moving vehicle, remember our unfortunate toll collector and keep your hands safely to yourself. Some snowballs aren't worth the risk. Number 3. Death Valley Days. They say the journey is more important than the destination, but for our next Darwin Award winner, both turned out to be equally fatal. It's July 2005 in California, and 35-year-old Robert is eager to hang out with the nudists at the Palm Springs campground, located in a section of Death Valley where temperatures regularly reach a blistering 136 degrees Fahrenheit. The journey to reach this clothing-optional paradise wasn't easy. The track was rough but passable until Robert was lured into the saline mudflats. The crackled surface appeared deceptively dry under the baking sun, but this was merely an illusion. Within a few feet of venturing onto this treacherous terrain, the wheels of his VW microbus sank deep into the hidden muck beneath the crust. Robert found himself stranded miles from nowhere, surrounded by the bleached skulls of other animals that had become trapped in the same mire. A grim foreshadowing that completely escaped his notice. With plenty of water on hand, Robert decided to wait for help to find him on the remote dirt track. After 6 days of waiting, he abandoned his vehicle and began walking, hoping to reach a less deserted location where someone might pass by. When he was shaking the last drop from his water bottle, help arrived in the form of 14-year-old British lads from the League of Venturers who were training in search and rescue techniques. They gave him a lift to the nearest ranger station, 80 miles away, where Robert kissed the ground in gratitude. Having cheated death once, you might think Robert would have learned his lesson about the dangers of Death Valley. But no, he was determined to reach that nudist campground. In nearby Bishop, he found someone to tow his microbus out of the mudflats. Unfortunately, it had 2 flat tires and other mechanical problems, so he returned to Bishop for supplies. He hitched another ride into Death Valley, this time with a couple who took an unfamiliar route from the north, dropping him off at a washout in the road about 15 miles from his destination. His plan was to locate the campground and get help fixing his vehicle. He stashed his supplies and began walking. 3 days later, his body was found without a map, a GPS, or even water. Authorities estimated he had walked 10 miles along the road before heading into the open desert, desperately seeking water. The desert had claimed another victim, proving once again that Death Valley doesn't give second chances to those who refuse to learn from their first mistakes. Number 2, flat-hatting pilots. Our next Darwin Award winners demonstrate that even the highly trained can fall victim to their own arrogance, especially when traveling at several hundred miles per hour just above the ground. On October 1st, 2017, 2 experienced military pilots were flying home from a week-long naval event that ironically included low-altitude awareness training. Rather than applying the safety lessons, the men decided to engage in flat-hatting, flying at low altitude and high speed across the land. Lieutenant Ruth, 31, and his advanced flight student, Lieutenant Birch, 25, took turns at the controls of their T-45C Goshawk training aircraft, swooping as low as 210 feet above the ground at high speeds. This wasn't just a minor bend of the rules. They were flagrantly disregarding the 500-foot clearance regulation that exists precisely to prevent the tragedy that was about to unfold. The instructing pilot seemed determined to teach his student the old flying maxim: there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old bold pilots. Unfortunately, this lesson would prove prophetic in the most literal way possible. At T-minus 35 seconds from impact, Ruth deviated from the flight path and commenced a descending turn to demonstrate terrain-following techniques. He then returned control to Birch and instructed him to make a hard right turn. But the aircraft was now too slow and too low. In response to these irregular maneuvers, the training aircraft stalled above the rising terrain. Too low, too slow, too late. Unable to eject safely, both lieutenants earned their entry into the double Darwin Awards archives. The pilots were steeped in an aggressive Top Gun culture that sometimes valued daring over safety. Sometimes the most dangerous element in a high-performance aircraft isn't the complex machinery, it's the overconfident human at the controls. Number 1. Killing time. Our number 1 Darwin Award winner proves that timing is everything, especially when you're trying to steal electrified metal between train schedules. In 2001 in Scotland, an enterprising thief with a good knowledge of the electrical system developed what he thought was a foolproof plan to steal valuable copper. Electric trains in Glasgow collect power from overhead cables and transmit any excess through the rails to a solid copper cable that routes it to a power redistribution box. This copper cable was the target of our would-be metallurgical entrepreneur. Being somewhat versed in how the electrical system operated, he knew that the copper was only electrified when trains were passing by. Therefore, he reasoned, if he timed his theft perfectly, he could cut the cable during the gaps between trains, when no electricity was flowing through it. On paper, it wasn't a terrible plan. The copper would be valuable at any scrapyard, and by timing his cuts between trains, he could avoid the lethal voltage that would otherwise course through the metal. There was just one small flaw in his otherwise ingenious scheme. In the pocket of his overcoat, police later found an out-of-date rail timetable. The train arrived 10 minutes before he thought it would, sending hundreds of volts of electricity through the thief's hacksaw and into his body, bringing an untimely end to his career in copper acquisition. His carefully planned heist had been foiled not by security systems or vigilant guards, but by his failure to check if the schedule had been updated. 10 minutes made the difference between a successful theft and a fatal miscalculation. Perhaps the most ironic aspect of this tragedy is that, had he simply taken the time to obtain a current train schedule, his plan might have worked. Instead, he became a cautionary tale about the dangers of working with electricity and the importance of up-to-date information. So remember, if your plans involve deadly electrical currents and precise timing, make sure your schedule is current. Otherwise, you might find yourself, like our unfortunate thief, on the receiving end of a Darwin Award. Bonus entry: scooter snuff. Like a scene from a traffic safety video gone horribly wrong, Our bonus story features a young man whose poor transportation choices led to a predictably tragic outcome. In January 2001, in New Mexico, an 18-year-old decided that the middle of the night was the perfect time for a scooter ride. But this wasn't just any scooter ride. This was a journey down the center lane of a major road, wearing dark clothing and carrying a bottle of tequila rose liqueur. Now, most people understand that crossing a street at night in dark clothing is dangerous enough. Adding a slow-moving scooter, placing yourself in the center lane of high-speed traffic, and mixing in some alcohol creates a recipe for disaster that even the most distracted driver would have difficulty avoiding. Our young Darwin Award winner was piloting his push scooter down the middle of the road when the driver of a pickup truck spotted him at the last moment. The driver swerved to avoid a direct collision, but still clipped the scooter rider with the side mirror. The unhelmeted teen hit the pavement and died at the scene from severe head injuries. The bottle of tequila rose was found intact nearby, a silent witness to the evening's poor decisions. This tragic incident serves as a reminder of the importance of visibility, protective gear, and keeping intoxicating substances separate from any form of transportation, even those that don't have motors. And there you have it, 10 plus 1 of humanity's finest moments of poor decision-making. Also, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next episode, where we'll bring you more tales of evolution in action. And if you know someone who could use a lesson in common sense, share this video with them. You might just save a life. As always, stay smart, stay safe, and remember, Darwin is watching. This is Wow Amazing, signing off until next time.